Once upon a time in a quaint coastal village named Coral Bay, there lived a fisherman named Cain. Unlike most of the fishermen in the village who were content with their modest catches, Cain was driven by his insatiable greed. His small, weathered boat, the Tempest, often returned from the sea burdened with just a handful of flounder and mackerel, hardly enough to feed his growing family. One fateful morning, as the sun peeked over the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, Cain decided to venture further out into the deep ocean than he ever had before. He believed that fortune favored the bold. His heart raced with excitement as he imagined the wealth that lay beneath the waves, waiting for him to snatch it up. After hours of fishing, Cain felt an unusual tug on his net. It was heavy, pulling him down with an undeniable force. He wrestled with the net, his heart pounding, until finally he managed to haul it up. And there it was, a magnificent bluefin tuna, shimmering like liquid sapphire. Cain had heard tales of this fish, its value surpassing that of any catch in the ocean. A single tuna could buy him a new boat, a bigger house, and enough food to last a lifetime. Overjoyed, Cain sailed back to Coral Bay, dreams of glory swirling in his mind. On his way, the thought of selling the fish crossed his mind, but as he imagined the delicious meals he could create with it, greed took over. "Who needs to sell it when I can feast on it with my family?" he murmured to himself. When he reached the shore, the villagers gathered, eyeing his catch with envy and excitement. "Cain, that fish could fetch a small fortune. You should sell it," they called out, hoping to benefit from his good fortune. But Cain brushed them aside with a wave of his hand. "I'm taking this home. My family will have the best meals, and I'll show everyone my wealth." Ignoring their advice, he loaded the cumbersome fish onto his shoulders and strutted home, visions of lavish feasts dancing in his mind. That evening, Cain and his family celebrated the bluefin tuna with a grand banquet. They grilled it over an open flame, seasoned it with herbs, and created extravagant sushi rolls. Neighbors gathered to admire the spectacle, their mouths watering in envy. But as the days passed, the sheer size of the fish began to overwhelm them. Cain's family, initially enthusiastic, found it hard to keep up with the endless meals centered around the bluefin. They crafted fish tacos, made hearty stews, and even experimented with tuna salad, but before long, they had barely made a dent. With each passing day, more portions spoiled, creating a stench that lingered in their home. Finally, after a week of struggling with leftovers, Cain reached for his knife and reluctantly began to toss out the rotten bits of the tuna into the sea. The fish he had once seen as a symbol of his wealth now seemed like a heavy burden, rotting in their very home. One afternoon, as he sat on the beach, weighed down by regret, a fellow fisherman named Thomas approached him. "Cain, did you hear about the tuna auction in town last week? A bluefin sold for thousands. You could have had a fortune." Cain's eyes widened. "What? You're joking," he exclaimed, the realization hitting him like a wave. He had squandered not just an opportunity but a small fortune that could have provided for his family for years to come. He felt a weight in his chest, a bitterness that tasted like rust. News of Cain's extravagant feast spread throughout Coral Bay, but it was not met with admiration. Instead, whispers of his foolishness filled the air. He could have helped so many and chosen to indulge, the villagers would say, shaking their heads in disappointment. With every sunset, Cain became more despondent. Regret gnawed at him and soured his spirit. He longed for the respect and admiration he had once sought, but now all he felt was shame. As he walked along the shore, he watched other fishermen return with their modest catches, their faces filled with pride. Some had families in need, others used their earnings to help the village prosper. Cain realized that he had been so blinded by greed that he had lost sight of what was truly important: community, generosity, and the simple joy of sharing. Determined to turn his life around, Cain sought out Thomas, offering him what was left of the spoiled fish, hoping to apologize and make amends. "I've been foolish, Thomas. I chose to feed my greed over my community. How can I help you?" Thomas, taken aback, smiled and clasped Cain's shoulder. "We all have moments we regret. Let's start anew. Bring your boat to the docks tomorrow. We'll fish together." From that day on, Cain dedicated himself to learning from Thomas and the other fishermen. He embraced the value of hard work, sharing the wealth of the sea, and fostering friendships with the villagers. Together they started a co-op to sell their fish collectively, which not only brought in more income but also strengthened their bonds. As the seasons changed, Cain transformed from the village's greedy figure into a beloved community member. He hosted fishing contests for the children, taught them the art of fishing, and organized meals to share the bounty of the ocean with those in need. Every now and then, memories of the bluefin tuna would flicker in his mind, but rather than feeling regret, he allowed it to inspire him. The once coveted fish became a lesson that shaped his new life, a life crafted from community and generosity rather than greed. One evening, as he stood on the shore watching the sunset, Cain smiled, heart full with gratitude. The ocean stretched out before him, limitless and giving, and he understood that true wealth was not measured by what you could catch, but by what you could share. Through his journey, Cain found his way back to the heart of fishing, not for glory, but for the joy of togetherness and the simple pleasure of sharing a meal with those he loved.